A strange edition of The View from the Ninian this week as Storm Dara put paid to all football across Wales and the game was called off against Watford, meaning there's no games to talk about. But this being Cardiff City, there's plenty of other things to get our teeth into. So we'll be talking about everything else that's been going on behind the scenes. So joining me, as usual, to talk about it, Ben Price, Tom Phillips. Ben Price, is that a Rogerson jersey, jacket?
It is, yeah. New training gear out this
Who's it
week.
made by?
It's made by Tour Sports, our friends, who also made our View from the Ninian kit. I would say you can buy it now, but it's all sold out because we're class. So, yeah, if you like this, look on the Tour website in the next few weeks. And there's also a new retro top out that is banging that you can buy pre-order right now.
How do you spell that website?
But Tour Sports?
Yeah.
TOR.
There you go. People might think it's TOUR because Tour is also a word. Just making sure we're clear, Ben. Tom Phillips, no, well, you've got retro Cardiff gear on, but you've also sunburnt your face, which really kind of sums up the difference between our lifestyles at the moment. We're sat here in the pissing rain and the wind. You've got a sunburnt face, so do you want to tell everyone about that? Also, it's not tomorrow; we're on the same day today, so there's no insight you can give us about what's happening tomorrow.
That's true. Yeah, I've got sunburnt face, but it looks like I've been wearing ski goggles, but I wasn't even wearing sunglasses, so I'm not quite sure how I've done this, to be honest with you. But I do look a little bit mental if anyone's watching on the YouTube. The YouTube? Yeah. God, I sounded about 85 then. If anyone's watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think my favourite part is where you've clearly wore your hat. So you've got the strip across there, and there's just that little bit there where sort of the gap is there. And I think that is 10 out of 10 good tan lines at.
I have not thought it through today.
Or the sunburn?
I've been sat in the sun. Yeah, I've been sat in the sun watching Melbourne victory versus Perth glory. So I still had a football weekend because I haven't got Storm Dara rampaging through my house. So it's nice, yeah.
Wow, make us very jealous. Yeah, Storm Dara put paid to the Watford game, which was meant to take place at the CCS yesterday. Ben, it was classic Cardiff City, wasn't it? On Friday, they released a statement contrary to media reports, disputing everything that had been said by the media about the game being postponed. And then within half an hour, the game had been postponed. Good stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we're going to come to it in a bit, but the club are really bad at comms, aren't they? Like, really, really bad at it at the moment. It's just not going well there. And I do feel sorry for them a bit because they had to put something out because there was unconfirmed stuff. People were confused with the FAW statement that all games in Wales are off. So they were sort of like, oh, yeah, we'll just put this out, make sure it's clear because it doesn't affect us, blah, blah, blah. They thought they were doing the right thing and they just made it worse, which is unfortunate. But there's a lot of things they're doing at the moment, Cardiff City, that are making things worse when they put stuff out. So just classic, innit? It is just textbook Cardiff City.
Tom's a man who's been on the inside. What would you have done in that situation?
I do feel sorry for them there because I think the big thing is you want to differentiate between you don't fall under the FAW jurisdiction. But for the sake of, I don't know, maybe waiting an hour or two, it's probably worth waiting just to see what's happening. Because I think at the moment, as we'll come on to, I think people have got the knives out for the club as it is. So any little thing like this, it doesn't really matter that we said it was on and then said it was off, but it just kind of feeds into that amateur hour kind of vibe that's going on around the club at the moment. But, it's called off for the right reasons. Let's not get away from that. But it just looks a bit naff, doesn't it, more than anything?
I just felt like the statement could have been shorter. It could have just been, we're aware of the FAW reports, but that is Welsh football and football under the jurisdiction of the FAW. We're still, at the moment, the game is planned to be on, but we're taking further advice. That's all it needed to be. I think
it's like you were good PR, isn't it?
Something like that, mate. It's like I do this for a living. I think the first line being contrary to media reports kind of is immediately combative. It's like you don't need to do that. You can say it in so many other ways. You don't need to be like, idiots believe in the press. It was confusing. All football in Wales is what the FAW said. The FAW probably could have said all football under our jurisdiction in Wales, or Welsh League football, and they could have helped it in that situation. So I don't think the FAW are totally blameless, but I just think the Cardiff City statement just didn't need to be that combative, and it could have been a bit more conciliatory and just said, we're waiting for more information, which they clearly were, right? Obviously, all the clubs, Newport, Merthyr, us, who were all under the English League system, all got the same information. We all released statements at pretty much the same time cancelling the game. So all they had to say was we're waiting for more information, but they didn't. So, Ben, obviously, we don't know what happened. The Pools would have probably ruled this an away win. on current form. But what do you think would have happened if we played Watford yesterday? Do you think Riza would have started his permanent reign with 3 points?
No. I think there's just bad feeling around the club in there at the moment. It's just, probably for the best that the game didn't happen. I think just the way it was going. Storm Darrow, to be honest, did us a favouring because while the City took a battering, I think Cardiff were taking a battering if the game had gone ahead. So,
Tom, do you think we would have won?
Can't prove otherwise. 4-0, I reckon. No, I think it is an interesting one. I think the timing of it probably has done us a favour. While there's a current vibe around the club, a weekend off probably isn't bad timing. We know what's happening with Riza now. He can go in there and, he can answer questions when the press come around that isn't related to, are you sticking around and stuff like that. He can put his name on the door, not just in sticky tape over the top of the last manager. He can have a permanent one put in. Yeah, he can have his new space. He can feel a little bit more at home.
Those business cards that he's had on order for a while, he can actually get them
exactly.
Sent out.
Yeah, exactly. He can reinstate his Canva free trial just to get it properly done. But I think, it has been a bit of a turbulent week for the club. So I think the timing of it probably has done us a favour.
It has done us a favour. And let's get on to the start of that turbulent week at the football club. We're doing this in slightly the wrong order. But obviously the big news coming out of Cardiff City in the last week is that Omer Riza has been given the permanent job. After over 70 days, I think it was 72, 73 days by the time they announced it, Omer Riza has been given the job as a permanent manager till the end of the season. It comes after, I don't know how many games he's been in charge. I think it was 12 games in total, where he started well. The last few games have tailed off. We did okay against Coventry. Watford would have been the interesting test. But Ben, ultimately, in your view, is this the right decision?
I can't decide. I don't want to be the guy, like, in his press conference, he was very on the back foot, sort of on the defensive about people thinking he's not experienced enough, blah, 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 for the job. But the fact is he's not experienced at this job. And this isn't an easy job. I think on the pitch, he's more than proved he's capable of managing this club. And he's done a very good job. You look at where we were at the start compared to how we were now. I think he's done a very, very good job. Got us playing some nice stuff at times. There are some flaws.
He's
it's not
perfect. Scoring goals and winning games, which is more than can be said for Errol Bullitt.
Exactly. So, like, on that side, he's more than in it. But it will come down to it's a lot more when you're taking it on full time to having it interim. Like, now he's got to use his contacts, get players in. Sort of now he can make a mark on his squad. Sort of in January, hopefully there's funds provided so he can enhance the squad. It becomes very different between permanent and like full-time manager. And it's up to him to prove it now. But I think on the pitch, I think he's in it. And I think he fully deserves the job. Off the pitch, I'm still questioning it purely because of just how shit show we've got running the club it is. And that's not his fault again, is it? It's again, he's another victim of circumstance, but you've got to take it.
Tom, do you think it's the right decision to appoint Omer Riza?
Yes, but at the wrong time. Like, it just should have been done before. We were riding a crest of a wave when we were unbeaten, or when we had that unbeaten run underneath him. So capitalize, when we're getting results, the players are right, like saying good things about him in the press and things like that. Do it then. If this was the plan, do it then. But now you can clearly see it's had a negative effect on the squad. We've had negative results since then. It's done nobody any good, this not knowing, this uncertainty. So it's just stupid timing. Just no matter what they would have done, like leaving it 70 odd days, you go either way. It's just madness. Something should have been done earlier. I'm not sure if it's going to work in the long run or not, because he is inexperienced. But I don't think it's a wrong decision. It's just no matter what they do at this time, it's bad timing. But it's just a tough situation now. Like, if you bring someone in now, it's still not going to work. I think we've just shot ourselves in the foot where
both feet probably.
It feels like something bad is going to happen after this, no matter what happens now. If we brought someone in new or with him being here, and I just feel sorry for the bloke now, because like people are going to be waiting for him to fail a little bit, because I think we're all kind of thinking the worst, because we've had the honeymoon period, it's dipped a little bit, And now he's got to deal with the atmosphere around the club as well. It's not like we've appointed him and we've gone, right, new manager, let's get behind him. It's we've appointed him and we're kind of going, what the fuck's going on? So it's a real tough one for everyone involved.
It's like we've appointed him and we were expecting it to be somebody else. Like after, like Ben, and to both your points, like the Norwich game was the ideal time to appoint him as manager because Callum O'Dowda gave that really positive interview saying, the players are all loving him. We've all got a smile on our face. You could see the result today. The atmosphere after that game was fantastic. They could have come out on the Sunday, given a statement and said, yeah, Omer Riza's got the job until the end of the season. We're just finalising the agreement, whatever it may be. And everyone would have been buzzing. Everyone would have been like, yes, the board, they'd have given goodwill to the board because we'd have been like, the board have made the right decision for the first time in a long time. Then we've gone, Omer Riza's proven it, and now we're riding a crest of a wave and we're going to push up the table even more. It might have even impacted the Luton result that came afterwards and the Blackburn result, I think, was the following weekend because the positivity would have carried on. Instead, we're now in a situation where another month has gone by. Yes, he's been appointed as manager, but I think everyone had expected him not to be appointed as manager. So they're dealing with that double disappointment of, one, no offense to Omer Riza, but we're slightly disappointed that Omer Riza has been given the job full time. And two, we're slightly disappointed it's not somebody else. And three, it's come when both of you have said we're on a bit of a down. The results haven't been great over the last 5 or 6 games. So it's like compounded all our disappointment into one moment. And I don't think I've seen a few people say now it's time to get behind Riza and all that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't feel like there's a positive feeling on Twitter at the moment amongst the fans. It doesn't feel like there's a positive feeling in the ground of the fans who aren't on Twitter. Everything just feels flat. And this has compounded it. I'm
not disappointed he's got the job.
I should clear. I'm not disappointed he's got the job either. Sorry.
I'm really glad he's got in sort of like, just because it's sort of settled with. And he seems like a bloody good bloke. He does. Yeah. You can't fault him. He's sort of, in the press conference and stuff, comes across well. He seems like a really good bloke. And like the players seemingly love him. It is just everything that comes with it, and it's not, none of it's his fault, and that's the really sad and frustrating thing. He should be at the peak now, right? He's finally proved himself that he's gone from coming into the club as sort of an attacking coach in the summer. He's worked his way up very quickly to become the first team manager and sort of into the role he's always wanted. That's amazing. Like, fair play to him, and like he's done it turning around the club at like a really, really difficult time. It is just every dickhead behind him that sort of the higher ups at the club have just made it. They bungle it as like the biggest way possible. It could be seen as a really good success story. It should be like a really nice story that he's come in and done this. Like, transformed the club, came in when we were at really low ebb and sort of turned it all around. But now we've got the delay in appointing him, like you said. It's also a short-term contract, which doesn't exactly fill you with hope. I know Tam's never going to sort of give a 2-year deal or whatever, but at least say it's a 1-year contract or a 1-year rolling contract. At least then there's sort of some view it's going on beyond the end of the season. Right now, we're going into January with a manager. He's got the full-time job, but he's basically...
Only until June.
Yeah, he's interim to the end of the season. We go through it all again. It's not exactly going to fill fans with confidence for long-term planning, and it's not exactly going to fill any incoming players with like hope for long-term planning. It just screams of, we're hoping in January we can bring some loan players in that sort of turn our season around a bit again.
I don't think we're ever going to give anyone a longer than a year contract again after the Arrow Bullet stuff in the summer. Obviously, there was a big debacle over that. There was a big back and forth over what kind of contract he's going to get. He was given a 2-year contract and he lasted 6 games. I think that's Vincent Tan done with it, isn't it? Tom, let's talk about Omer Riza's comments in the press conference. You know, some of it was very normal. I firmly believe that with a couple of additions, we could pick up a lot more points and keep climbing up the table. But I found some of his comments quite strange. One of his comments being, I want to apologize to a certain extent to the people who feel like I'm not ready for this position. You have to gain respect. You have to gain the belief from people in respect of whether you're good enough or not. I'm prepared to do that and make sure we put the best performances in possible for the club. To me, that's weird framing of what he's trying to say. Do you agree?
Yeah. I think between that and the mate day thing as well, I think people need to stay away from social media a little bit. I think that's what it feels like. It's not like he's saying, I believe I'm the man for the job. I've got this, I've got the kind of skill set. I reckon I could do a decent job here. The players are believing in me. The staff believe in me. It's now up to me to go out there and prove people wrong. It's the negative framing. Like, he's gone for the same message. Yeah, he's gone for the same message, but from the negative angle. And it just sounds a little bit like, I don't know, just really downbeat. And we don't need downbeat at the moment. We're downbeat as it is. We just need someone to kind of like look like they're going to pull their socks up and get on with it. And there is a little bit of a worry around this kind of. It does seem that people are paying attention to what's going on outside of the club a lot more. I don't know whether that's because inside the club is a shambles as well, and they're looking for some sort of respite, but they're not going to get it on Twitter. They're not going to get any respite there. So yeah, I think there were some parts of the press conference that make complete sense, but it's just, I think that might be just a little lack of media training within being inexperienced and new to this sort of job, because yeah, it didn't come across brilliantly, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Ben, he kind of gets to that point in the end, right? He says, I'm not disappointed people feel that way because I'm relatively experienced if people want to call me that. But I know I'm ready to do the job. And I've said that from day one. I think I'm proving I'm ready to do the job. That's the message you want to go out with, isn't it? That's the headline you want. But leading with that, I want to apologize to people. Basically, I want to apologize to my haters. It's really, that could take the headlines. And it doesn't make sense then, does it?
Yeah, it's like Tom said, it sets the tone negatively straight away. I think managers that have come in and succeeded, you look at the way Warnock came in, and like they're very different. I get it's like an experience thing with Warnock, but instantly came in and changed the mood around the club by being positive, being upbeat, and really sort of bringing that good. Like he made the place feel good again. Sort of got in with the fans and sort of bulleted at the start as well. Sort of got in with the fan groups, went out and about and saw the people. Sort of made that connection, and that really, to be honest, that probably saved Riza's job for last season. I think like if he hadn't done that stuff, he would have like really sort of like got a lot more grief for the results he sort of had, especially sort of March time. Riza needs to do that and sort of build that bond again, because it's down to him now. He's the leader of the club as far as it goes. Well, he's the front facing leader of the club, because as we're going to come to, like the ownership don't give a shit. He's got to go out there and sort of make that bond. Now that's part of his role, is sort of making that feel good vibe. And leading your first press conference as full-time manager with, sorry, can't hear you, I'm blocking out the haters. It's a bit of a rough start and sort of sets the tone not in a great way. It sort of instantly feels like it's the players and the management against everyone else. And that's not what this club needs at the moment. It needs some sort of force that's trying to bring the fans and the players on the pitch together again.
I think you've touched on like a side effect of like the dilly-dallying around appointing as well, is the fact that he couldn't, there's no way the club would let him go out to those groups, go to the workmen's clubs in the valleys and stuff like that, because he's not there as like a permanent manager, and he's going to get questions about his future and stuff like that. So he's kind of missed out on that opportunity early doors to build that bond, to go down like the Queen's Vaults and have a pint with fans and little things like that. So he's already on the back foot, and it's just those little things, the knock-on effect of not having a permanent manager. It's not just on the pitch, it's the camaraderie with our fan base, because like we've said it plenty of times, we're a simple fan base. Football fans are simple. You see a manager knocking about in your local pub, having a pint with people, it goes a long way. But there's no way you could have done that over the last 72 days, wherever it was, because he didn't have a clue what was going on.
Yeah, and I was going to get onto that point really, Tom, about the club's handling of all this. Like, again, we've touched upon it. Omer Riza is the casualty of the club's indecision and the club's inability to run a football club properly. It's the long and short of it. And it's not his fault that the club haven't appointed him as manager. He's done everything he could. He was basically given the audition, wasn't he? Go and get the results, and the manager's job will be yours, is probably what he was told. But the longer it went on, Tom, the longer it felt like the club was undermining him, didn't it? Because there were still conversations about, are there other managers who could come in? There was interest in that Norwegian bloke who they got references for and all that kind of stuff. It just felt like Omer Riza was a patsy, and the club were hanging him out to dry to an extent.
Yeah, 100%. Because like if they were sensible in this, there was one point early in his tenure where we were pretty much saying you can't not give him the job now. Mm-hmm. And that's the time to pounce, right? If you're paying any attention to what's going on in the fan base, if you're looking at it from a comms angle, a PR angle, that's the time to swoop. But they were clearly distracted by other things, whether it's to do with the club or not to do with the club. They weren't paying full attention to what would be the best optics here and the best way to get people on side. And perhaps they did have a long line of managers lined up that weren't him. But then none of that's come to fruition. So what's going on there? And like we touched on it earlier on, like appointing Riza now was probably the decision that made the least sense.
Yeah.
Because if you had him, like if you were messing him around for 70 odd days and then you brought someone in, it's proper shit on him, don't get me wrong. But then it starts to make sense that there's clearly something going on in the background. But they were clearly doing nothing, really.
Nothing.
So it's the one that's like, well, you either appoint him earlier or you don't appoint him. And now I think I didn't twig about this until you said it earlier on. The length of the contract, they're saying they've given him the permanent job. They haven't. They have just given him an interim job till the end of the season and framed it in a different way.
Yeah.
It's just so many things we're on about now is how how things are being framed. He's effectively had the interim job. Yeah. They're going to hope he does well so they can roll it on because he'll be cheaper than any other option. But they've effectively given him the interim job just so they don't need to make a decision till the end of the season again.
I don't think it's the cheap option. I don't believe it came down to price. I think it came down
I think it's a factor.
I think it is. I think it's literally just the easiest option. They went, what will shut them up the quickest? Right, we'll do this. I feel like it was just the easiest option where they had to put least work in.
If that was the case, though, wouldn't they have done it 70 days ago?
Yeah.
If it was the easiest option, you just give him the job when we're doing well, right? Because there's clearly something else going on for them not to do it.
No, I think there was. I think they were out looking for someone else for a long time and just weren't happy with what they were getting. All the people they wanted were out of reach. And eventually they've gone, we'll just give it to him then.
The option that was mentioned probably the most throughout all this has been Ruben Sellers, right? And Ruben Sellers, obviously at Reading, doing a great job. I didn't realise he was doing such a good job. They're sixth in I think they're sixth in the league, or they were at least yesterday, despite everything that's going on. He's obviously gone to Hull now, and there was a six-figure compensation that was involved in that. I think whether Omer Riza is the choice being driven by price, Ben, I kind of agree with what you're saying there. But the other options being expensive is probably what drove us away from them. Ruben Sellers probably costing £500,000. Let's just say it's £500,000 for Reading, for us to take it from Reading. Vincent Tan wouldn't have paid that. Stephen Schumacher probably wanted a bit more money than we were willing to pay him. We wouldn't have paid that. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
And I don't think Riza's driven by, maybe Riza's not driven by price, but that is a factor when it comes to choosing somebody else.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's already spoken about January in his press conference, talking about a long list of players, recruitment, all this kind of stuff. But Ben, ultimately, if he's got three things to do in January, what are they?
Fullbacks,
Would you close?
striker, and then the next January sale.
The next January sale. You think he's the next man?
I think he has to. I think he just needs to shop anywhere that's not the club shop. He clearly likes shopping local in the vicinity to the Cardiff City Stadium. And
What's
I think
on the retail park? Asda? They sell some nice.
Look, George got some nice stuff. I don't mind that. George has got some decent stuff. It's not horrific. Other than that, it is that the outfit, RIP Top Shop, that's all gone. He clearly doesn't like shopping online. He likes just staying in that facility. So just cross the road, Omar, and sort of just go to the next.
Tom, what three things need to happen for you? I'm looking at the Capital Retail Park, by the way, to see what other shops are there.
I like to think instead of going to the retail park, he just uses the unofficial Cardiff merch. So he's done the club shop now, and he's going to the stalls dotted around like Billy the Badge and people like that, putting them in his Crocs. Like I love to see him just turn up in those like scarves with people's heads on them and stuff like that. But like the three things in January, yeah, we need a goal scorer. I know we've got the likes of Isaac Davis and stuff coming back. We need fullbacks, but to be honest, outside of that, I think we've got a decent squad. It's a little bit paper thin at times, but we've got good players in that squad. And I think it's about just rallying people now and just getting us playing some decent football again. We played some really decent stuff under him early doors. We've gone away from that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to kind of supplement our squad. We don't need an overhaul. In previous Januaries, we've needed overhaul. I think we need just some quality signings, probably some youngsters from like big clubs and stuff. Again, that's worked for us in the past. So let's see what happens. It's an easier job this January than it has been in past ones. So I'm hoping that helps him out a little bit, because if we needed an overhaul, that's a big task for a relatively inexperienced manager.
Final question on what needs to happen in January and all that kind of stuff. Ben, is it time for the Wilf Kanga renaissance?
The Wilf Kanga? No.
Yeah. No,
I think
there's no way back in for him.
I just don't see how there is. I'd love to sit here and go, look, there's a glimmer of hope there. There's something there. Like, there's just that little bit that gives me hope he's going to come good. There's not an element of what I've seen about that bloke should be a professional footballer, never mind come good for Cardiff City. He's genuinely. I think he's genuinely going to go down as one of the worst signings we've ever made.
Tom, you're a bit more positive.
Yeah. I don't think he'll go down as one of the worst signings because he hasn't really done anything wrong. He just hasn't done anything right. I think there's no coming back from it because even if you look at it, it seems like his best mate in the squad is Mate Day. And he's not exactly having a good time. So if they're having conversations together, God knows what they're talking about. But I think it's one of those ones where you just look, you cut your losses. It hasn't worked. Shake your hand. No hard feelings. Back you go. Bring someone else in for a loan spot because he's not going to want to be there.
No.
The fans have, unless he's got a hat trick in the next game. Even then, people would just put it down to luck, probably.
Yeah.
Like going on. But yeah, I think.
I'd like to see him do it again next game.
Yeah, exactly that, right? So no, I think that ship has sailed.
Final point on Riza getting the job, Ben. How long does he last?
At least to the end of the season, and we'll see from there. Yeah, we're not paying him out the contract. The end of this year, he's here until May at the earliest. So,
Tom,
I am going to stay relatively positive about this. I think like all the stuff that we've moaned about over the last 25 minutes or so, like we said, is nothing to do with Riza himself. And we've seen glimpses of what he can do, what he can get out of this squad. With it being a little bit more permanent now, being permanent now, and, the players knowing they can buy into him a little bit more, I'm hoping something positive comes out of it. So, yeah, I think he'll be here till the end of the contract and hopefully a lot further because, he gets us into the top half of the table. A bit of continuity as well wouldn't do us any harm. So yeah, I think we've seen enough from him in his early tenure to show that he can have an impact on this squad.
I'd love for him to be a success. I really would.
Absolutely, I would as well. It's just I just don't trust his football club.
No, that's the issue. Because I'd love for him to be absolutely flying, and the club are shitting themselves in February. April, sort of Easter time, the club are shitting themselves that look, we're in the top half, we're sort of flying on, and there's another club that have sacked their manager and they're looking at him. I'd love for us to be in that position. That'd be such a nice spot for us to be in. We bungle it and somehow end up paying them for him to take Riza off us, but he seems like a really good guy, and I think that's the most important thing to stress. Like, I really want him as a person to be a success. The rest is sort of out of his control, and it's not his fault if it goes tits up.
I think that's fair enough. Right, speaking of going tits up, let's revisit our predictions from the start of the season. New manager. I'm introducing a new rule to the Predictions League. I'm calling it the Predictions Mulligan, Hot Mulligan, if you like emo music, where Cardiff finished, we at the start of the season, we did our predictions, put them on Twitter, and I'm going to allow you two things here, Ben and Tom. You can move Cardiff from the position that you predicted them at the start of the season to a new position, and you can move one other team into a new position. So I'm going to get the predictions up on screen. We're going to start with you, Tom, because yours is the one that's on screen at the moment. This was Tom's prediction at the start of the season. He placed Cardiff City in fifth. We were all excited. We were all giddy, but I don't think we were fifth giddy at that point. Tom, do you want to have a mulligan on Cardiff and move them to a new position?
So what I would say is that I think a clear top four is forming in the Championship. So I don't think us finishing fifth is completely out of the question. But I think it serves me right for moving away from my tried and tested. So I'm not going to go completely negative, but I'll move us down to plucky eighth.
Okay. Plucky eighth. Tom, is there another team you'd like to move around? I'm looking at the bottom of your table there. Blackburn Rovers being in 24th, that feels a bit off now. Some of the others okay, but Blackburn's the one that stands out for me. You could move another team as well into a new position.
To be honest, it doesn't look as mad as I thought it would, with the likes of Preston, Oxford, Plymouth down the bottom. Coventry third seems to be a bit of a stretch. So I'll move Coventry from third down to about 19th.
Okay. That's a big drop. 16 positions.
Yeah, why not?
All right, fine. So we're going to go Cardiff down to 8th, Coventry down to 19th.
Yeah.
All right.
Ben. That's a bit of a nothing mulligan. I'm not going to lie, but there we go.
a mulligan's a mulligan. You're allowed to do whatever you want. Ben, it's over to you now. You predicted a slightly less optimistic, but still pretty mad Cardiff in 6th. Again, we were giddy. We were excited. I'm not blaming you. Do you want to move Cardiff down or up? You could move them up.
Yeah, I'm going to take them. What I will say is there was a typo on this when I did the graphic. That should say Cardiff City 16th.
All right, got it. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so that's where that went wrong. And yeah, I'd like to take that, and I'll go with that. I'll put Cardiff in 16th.
All right, and any other teams again you want to move up? Obviously, your bottom half looks pretty good. Plymouth, Oxford, QPR, Bristol, Portsmouth, Derby towards the bottom makes sense. Watford have obviously surprised a few people. Sunderland in 14th, that's a bit low compared to where they are now. Are there any changes you want to make to any other teams?
I am going to go, and I'd like to swap Hull, and I'm going to put them in 18th. Swap, like for like swap Hull and Watford. Like swap them around.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So Cardiff down to 16th, Hull and Watford swapping in 18th to 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I've actually not done too bad there. I'm looking at the table.
Yeah, that actually looks all right.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
I don't think anyone's done horrendous. Actually, I haven't seen yours yet, Ben.
No, I can't. Well, let's go to mine. I put Cardiff in 7th, so I was the least optimistic of us, putting Cardiff in 7th. I think the rest, obviously Blackburn being in 23rd is pretty low, but Plymouth being down there, Preston, QPR, Portsmouth all in the bottom half, that makes sense. Cardiff being 7th. My top half is a bit mental, but Coventry I think will drop out. But Sheffield United, Burnley, Leeds being in the top 5 all fits. So I'm going to move Cardiff. I'm going to move them to 13th. I think we're going to make our way up the table a little bit in the second half of the season. I'm going to put us in 13th. And the other team I'm going to move, guys, is Luton, and I'm going to put Luton from 6th down to 12th. I'm not going to swap Stoke. Everyone just gets moved down then. But that's what I'm going to do there because Luton are having a shambles. I think it's the long and short of it. So yeah, that's my mulligan.
I think your maddest one is Portsmouth in 16th.
Well, look, I didn't anticipate the renaissance of Josh Murphy. 2 games in a row against Swansea and Bristol. A goal and assist in each one. Man of the match 2 games in a row. I didn't anticipate that. He could push them all the way up to the heady heights of 12th or 11th.
Can I say, though, even though I have moved those teams for the benefit of playing this game now, I actually would quite like to just stick to what I did at the beginning of the season and own it.
Well, you have to, because this is just an on podcasting. These photos.
Oh, this is. I was about to say we're not redoing graphics and stuff because we're too lazy.
No.
I'm too lazy for that. I'm not doing that again. I didn't even know
this was just a fun. This is just a fun little feature. Fine, that's fine. There we go.
have no other games to talk about, Tom. We had to come up with
something. True.
Write another quiz. Every time I write a quiz, I see disappointed faces looking back at me.
That's true. I'm
not disappointed because I'm glad you cleared that up because part of me when we were doing this was going, shit, do I have to do more graphics?
No, Ben. No extra arm work on your behalf. It's just, I mean, I'll probably forget about this by the end of the season. I'll be like, oh, we did a mulligan. Oh, did we? I can't remember what anyone ever did. So it's just for the benefit of the listeners because they'll remember. Exactly. Talking of the listeners, let's go over to Twitter, twitter.com/VFT Ninian. All your tweets. There is a few, obviously no games to talk about, so there's more about the general kind of running of the club and a few good ones in there as well. Right, let's start from the top. The Ninian Mike, as this storm wipes out South Wales, if there was to be a Freaky Friday-style film where a member of the City team swaps with Derek Brockway, who is that and why, and what would they get up to? To be fair, Derek might swap jobs with Riza by the end of the season if he's the next raffle winner. Ben, I guess, which of the Cardiff players do you think would make a good weatherman?
I'm going to go with Ethan Horvath because imagine how far on that map he can reach and show with going on with those arms. Absolutely perfect for it.
I also imagine, I think he's from Colorado. He's an outdoorsy kind of bloke. He'd be very good on weatherman walking as well, wouldn't he, Ethan Horvath?
That's very true. And I think, well, to be honest, I think it'd be very quick, just the length of him. 2 steps, and he's at every destination as well.
The length of him. Be careful what you say there, Ben. Tom, over to you.
I think
Colorado.
The weatherman walk-in angle's interesting. I'd quite like to see Callum O'Dowda doing a documentary series. I think he's got a demeanour, he's softly spoken. I can see him walking through the hills. But then I wouldn't want to lose him as a player if it's a complete swap. So
I think Brockway on the wing isn't going to have the pace we need.
No, just swap it for Kanga. He's not really doing much. So
give him some purpose.
Yeah, exactly. So Brockway for Kanga. I'd like to see that sub. That's the only sub that we'd see that was more mental than the Camarasa Healy one, I reckon. So yeah.
Also, Callum O'Dowda, you could trace his granddad back to Ireland, Brendan O'Dowda, if you want to check out his music. He was a very good ditty singer from back in the day, Brendan O'Dowda.
Yeah.
You could trace his family roots all the way back to Brendan. That would be lovely. I'd like
if we're going Weatherman walking, though, I think Weatherman walking with Perry and G would be amazing. Just getting in rows with people across national parks all across the country. Just
also in his Scouse accent, like you can see him walking along. What's that? Ah, sound. Is that island over there? Sound. Gareth Dunning have always sat on the fence and seen and appreciated what Tanner's contributed, brackets money, at the same time, his awful mistakes and disrespect for the fans' history and culture. But enough of the shambles and how it's run a lack of communication. Time to back Riza and the players. Noah Ninian, in terms of response to the letter, that's a new low, is it not? The fact they posted it on the website, not the socials as well. How spineless. Surely only adds to the apathy. Also, what a shit hand for having a game postponed. Weird vibe of stagnation despite the new appointment. We'll come to the fans' letter shortly. Simple question for you, Ben. Reece Spear asks, would you take going down if it meant getting rid of Tan on the board, or would you take keeping Tan if it meant going up?
Relegation isn't an option for this club. I think the idea of if we get relegated and Tannen will go, it doesn't happen like that. I think if we get relegated, we're really in the shit, and that was shown by the panicking from the board last season or 2 seasons ago. Yeah, I'd rather not get relegated and keep them for the time being, sort of work on what we can, because relegation's a fate worse for us, to be honest.
Tom?
I completely agree. That would have been my answer, like pretty much word for word, because we can't afford to go down. And you get rid of Tan, you're not guaranteed you're bringing in someone any better at the moment. So, yeah, it's exactly what Ben said.
Brandon Arthur, confidence-wise, percentage-wise, how confident are you that Riza sees out his contract? The boys have both said they're pretty confident. Lee Spear, again, not related to Reece Spear. I've got a good feeling about Riza. I think we've already seen he's got the ability to learn. His subs at Bristol cost us. Then in other games, his changes have had positive effects. All good managers start somewhere. And maybe, just maybe, it's going to be Riza next here. 2 questions now about appointing his own coaching staff. Josh Joyce, who should the club bring in to support Riza? Does Pearce go back to the under-21s? Jacob Randall, is there any talk of Riza appointing his own coaching staff? Ben, it doesn't seem like there's any talk of that, is there?
No, I think it is what it is now for the rest of the season, but the sounds of things. He was asked about it, and he sort of said he hasn't really looked at it, but my guess is he's looked at it and been told no, they're not going to pay to bring someone else new in. I feel like Pearce and stuff like that on the bench now is what we've got here. Is probably we might get one in, maybe there might be someone there, but I can't see many coming in, especially until the end of the season on a deal to the end of the season. Again, doesn't scream long term, does it?
No. Oliver Reese, this one's for you, Tom. Shall we pick an Australian team to follow and talk about them instead? Few from Down Under podcast sounds good. You're there, Tom. You're getting sunburnt by the Australian sun. Who should we pick?
Yeah. Well, I would say Melbourne Victory just because that's who I watch the most. But the angle I found is I reckon people should follow Western United.
Okay.
Because they've got a young defender.
Like a neo-Nazi movement.
That's positive number 1. No, they've got a young 20-year-old centre-back who was born in Cardiff.
Oh.
And that is Kane Sebastiano Vidmar. I don't know why I said Vidmar wrong.
Oh.
So he was born in Cardiff while Tony Vidmar played for the club.
Fantastic.
So we've got a Welsh-born centre-back playing at Western United in the A-League. And I'm now convinced he's the answer to Cardiff and Wales's problems in the future. So for that reason alone, I think we should all be getting Western United, which is not a Nazi group. It's a team in the outer suburbs of Melbourne in Tarneet.
Wow. I'd be happy to support that. He was born on the 4th of June, 2004. Could he be the answer to Wales's centre-back problems? We don't really have them. Crowbar Johnny, have the City faithful got the bollocks to make a stand or just carry on being exploding doormats? GER 30212376. He says, I think football fans enjoy being angry. Do you agree? Ben, do you agree that football fans like being angry?
I'm surprised that wasn't him just trying to like sell us betting results with a Twitter handle like that. That is the most bot-sounding Twitter handle I've ever seen.
You may have recognised that name from a few pro-tan tweets.
Oh, is it him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning, Vincent. How are you? What was the question again? I've completely forgot. I got distracted.
I think football fans enjoy being angry. Do you agree?
No. I'm angry with this, and I'm not enjoying it. I'm bored of it. I'm fucking done with it. So, Vincent, if you could please sort it out, that would be great. Cheers, mate.
Tom, I'd say you have a slightly different view of this going by our experiences at Plymouth last year, where that fan behind you just spent the whole time shouting at people.
Yeah, the only time I get angry is when people are angry, I've realised. But yeah, he did wind me up. But yeah, I don't like being angry. I do find it amusing seeing other people angry, including Ben Price. But I think, football is much better when you're having a good time. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, so Vincent or GR, whatever his name is, I don't enjoy being angry. But do you reckon some fans probably do enjoy being angry, right? Because it's their outlet. But I think the majority don't.
Speaking of that fan, hi Hugh Kinsey.
Hi Hugh Kinsey. Some of the other tweets before we get to the serious stuff. Matthew Hawkins, cranberry sauce, yes or no? It's a yes from me. Ben, Tom?
100% yes.
Tom?
Oh, yeah.
That's the first time we've ever been so united on something.
I would have put money on Ben Price being a no on cranberry sauce.
I love cranberry sauce. Amazing
stuff. Utah Jazz fans UK, Andy. Popeyes or KFC? I'm going Popeyes. I love Popeyes. Ben, Tom?
I've still not tried. I was tempted to try Popeyes last night, but didn't get around to it. So I haven't tried Popeyes.
Their chicken tenders are banging.
If I'm going different chicken, I go slim chickens over KFC.
Oh, Tom? Something Australian?
No.
Galah chicken.
No, great. I had a KFC.
Flaming Galah chicken, mate.
I can't see past KFC. I do like Popeyes. It's great, but there's something about KFC. The thing about KFC is I didn't have one in Carmarthen growing up, so I held it in such high esteem that I always wanted. So adverts, but I couldn't quite get it. That and Miss Millie's were the two things I always wanted because we didn't have them in Carmarthen. So
Millie's.
Miss Millie's still going.
I think so. They opened one in Walthamstow a little while ago, and it shut quite quickly because they stopped paying the rent. But Miss Millie's is such a fantastic thing because growing up, it was only available in like Wales and the southwest of England. So it's like Cardiff, Exeter, Taunton, and Torquay, and there were people who used to do tours of all the restaurants. So they go to like 11 of them because they were all in like these weird places. But I never knew anywhere apart from the one in Canton in Cardiff, which was by my nan's house.
Yeah, like the first thing I did. Yeah, the City Road one, because the first thing I did pretty much when I went to Cardiff Uni was ordering Miss Millie's. Like childhood me, I'd been waiting for that moment, and I did it like almost instantly.
Amazed. I said we wouldn't last an hour on this podcast. We're at 42 minutes. Matty Aztec, what's your go-to red weather warning snack? Mine yesterday was, I'm going to show my middle class sensibilities here. It was just a classic white baton loaf of bread from Tesco's with some boursin. Which warmed up the bread, put some balls on it. It was banging. Tom, you no red weather warning for you, so you don't get to say. Ben, what was your snack?
Tom is a red. Looking at his face, he is a red.
He's a red weather warning.
Yeah. Wear sun cream, people. Christ.
What was my go-to snack? Bag of Maltesers. Just underrated chocolate, man. Underrated.
Tom, you can get involved.
I like doing toasted bread, covering it with Philadelphia so you can hardly see the bread, and then rashers of bacon.
By toasted bread, do you mean toast?
Yes.
Two more questions about fun stuff, and then we'll talk about the less fun stuff. Just another boo bird. Why is O'Dowda persevering with his mustache? Is it some sort of bet? I can't get involved in this because as a man with a mustache, I will stick up for him and say that he's trying his best. But Ben, it's pretty pathetic, isn't it? His mustache.
I rate it. It looks like a proper mocha stain.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine with it. Got no problem with it at all. If he's happy, good on him.
Tom?
I think it just reflects the club. he's really, really trying his best, but it's not quite working at the moment. So I think as soon as we start to click as a team, you'll see it disappear. I think it's just going to be there as just a gauge of how things are going on with the club. We'll have to have like daily updates from O'Dowda's face, I reckon.
Thomas asks, is everyone in our squad play darts? Who'd be the best? What would they average? And I think that links. I think O'Dowda would be the best darts player in the squad. I think O'Dowda is just.
Just giving him as the answer for everything. Have we forgotten the rest of our squad's names?
No, I just think O'Dowda's a really good sportsman. I just think he'd be good at everything.
Yeah,
like if you give him enough time, he'd be good at everything. And I think he'd be hitting averages of around 70 to 80 quite quickly.
But like Ben's touched on it with Horvath's arms. Like he could just probably
That's
just
true.
put them in the board.
Yeah,
Just reach but then I have seen him miss some really simple saves. So you can imagine him reaching to put it in the board and still missing.
Hit
So
double
I'm
one
undecided.
Accidentally throws it and stabs the bloke down the other end of the pub.
I'll go Horvath still. Yeah.
All right, Horvath, Ben.
I think Di Turnbull would be good at arrows. Don't know why.
Last question before we get to the harder stuff. DJ in it asks, what was the Spotify Wrapped looking like, lads? Ben, what was your number one artist on Spotify Wrapped? Or don't you use Spotify Wrapped? Do you use like Deezer?
No, I use Spotify.
All right.
Number one artist, as it is every year, is Sum 41. Top 0.001% of fans this year because I am very uncool. The rest of it was then completely sabotaged by my wife because I was too cheap. We don't need to like the solo plan Spotify accounts. We never really listen to it at the same time. There's Demi Lovato, Britney Spears, all kinds of things, and none of it's me. The only thing I've got is
Yeah.
Bullshit, yeah. Tom, what was your top five?
My top one was up and coming band The Beatles. Cardiff fans The Tubs made it into my top five.
Wow. Shout out The Tubs, one of my favourite bands I discovered this year as well. And I think they do listen to the podcast. So shout out The Tubs.
There we go. So they made it into my top five. Oasis, because I'm pretty basic. REM, because I was born slightly too late.
Michael Stipe.
Yeah, and Editors, which I'm annoyed by. That was just because I was going to see them in a gig, and I felt like I should listen to their back catalogue again. But to be honest, my Spotify was a little bit warped rather than wrapped because, like, I've listened to so many podcasts now that my music listening has gone downhill, and I also use Radio Paradise, which just throws random songs and you get to rate them. So it's been a bit all over the place. But shout out to Hilary Duff, who made it into my top 100 this year.
My top five was High Vis, one of the best bands I've discovered in recent years, and their song Trauma Bonds was my number one most listened to song. Then Charlie XCX, Speed, Thursday, and Mom Jeans. Charlie XCX, shout out, the only woman in my top five.
Mine was pretty light on the females, but my top song was "Whole of the Moon" by the Waterboys.
Yeah, I mean that's your karaoke song, though, isn't it?
It's true. And then I texted one of my mates, and it was his song as well, like completely separate. So I don't know what's going on in my friend.
It made it in my top 100, and it has been for the last 2 years.
Go.
The Tubs didn't make it into my top five, but Wretched Lie was one of my top. I think it was in my top 10 most listened to songs. So shout out to Tubs.
I'll be honest, I'm surprised that lack of Carly Rae Jepsen in your top there, Ben.
Well, the last few years have been dominated by Carly Rae, Steely Dan, but I think this year I didn't really listen to Steely Dan so much.
Growth.
And a little bit of growth. I discovered hardcore this year, so I went big on hardcore. Like I was scrolling through. I also got like Sky Ferreira made it into my top 100. So did Jessie Ware. Vibes Cartel was in there. My music taste is nothing if not eclectic. I'm
still firmly in 2004.
My June was apparently my Pink Pilates Princess Strut Pop month, which was great. And then August was Manga's Beats Grime, which was Mitchell Brothers, Bashy, and Merkston. So, listen, I'm just showing off here that I've got a really eclectic music taste, and I'm probably the most musically educated person here. Britney Spears.
Yeah,
How would you, Ben?
I was going to try and argue with you then, but no.
There's absolutely nothing that Britney Spears wasn't for me. If we're going to look at the podcast wrap though, 24% follower growth.
Yeah, our audience went up 24% this year. So thank you very much, everyone.
And 323 of you, the most listened to podcast is Us Three Idiots.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And wasn't it 1.2 thousand? What about 1,200 people? We're in the top 10.
Top 10
of their podcast, which is amazing.
Yeah,
obviously
1.2.
more people listen to us. Loads more people listen to us than that. But we're in the top 10 for a large portion of our audience. Right, we've done the fun stuff. Now let's talk about the bad stuff. Longshank Stu says the only way the club statement could show any more contempt for the fan base is if they just said "fuck off" and know your place, minions. Slowborough Blues, sack the board, sell up. Jason Davis, as fans, why do we put up with the total disregard from the board? What is the best way to make them understand the hurt they cause and the damaging our club? The merry-go-round continues, and this leads quite nicely in to what happened this week. So if you've been living under a rock, I don't think you have. What happened this week was the Cardiff City Fan Advisory Board sent out an open letter to the club. I think it was on Thursday of this week, or maybe on the Wednesday of this week. It was around the time we appointed the manager. I can't remember the exact chronology of things. Basically,
the letter from the fan board went out on Sunday just before we recorded.
Oh, Sunday before we recorded. So that shows how much I've been paying attention to days this week. So went out at the end of last week. I think the fan advisory board put out a very strong letter. It talked about no clarity on plans. It talked about no clarity on the future of this football club. It talked about no clarity over Omer Riza. And obviously, the fan letter caused a bit of a stir. Ben, Tom, what did you make of the fan advisory letter? Let's start with you, Ben.
I think they were pretty spot on. It was nice to see them come together and take some action. They're the representative of the fans. I think for the most part, they got their point across about the fans feeling in a very sort of professional, dignified way. They laid across their points and didn't go sort of the extreme route of sell up, or it wasn't too sort of explosive of that. It was look.
Yeah, it wasn't too incendiary, was it?
No, it was. We want more communication with us. Can you please give us some? We'd like to hear from you. And I think they fair play to them. I think they got the tone pretty much spot on. Exactly how probably with less swear words than I would have put it across, but fair play to them for that.
Tom, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it was a fairly classy way of doing it. Like Ben said, I think it wasn't too pushy. It was just like, look, hello, we want to have dialogue. And we'll get on to what the response was. It was just like, look, the communication channels are open here if you want to speak with us. And it just highlighted the worries we've all got as fans. I think, you look at the response to the letter, nobody's saying they've got the tone wrong. That's not my feelings. You're not speaking on my behalf or anything like that. I thought it was a very level-headed, very classily done letter. And it was needed because, it's been a shambles recently. And I know that we're caught between a rock and a hard place because we want more communication, but every time we get communication, it's normally a shambles. So what can we do? But it was definitely needed. It was good timing for it.
It was good time. I agree. I think the letter struck the right tone. I think it was, it talked about wanting to work with the club. It was very conciliatory while also putting across the points in a forthright way. I think it was the right time for it as well. And obviously it came during a big week. Obviously Riza was appointed and all that kind of stuff. But the letter was good. The club's response was a lot worse, wasn't it, Ben? We can talk about when the club put the response out. We can talk about the tone of the response, but everything about it was badly handled, wasn't it, Ben?
I think they should be genuinely ashamed of how they responded to this. They wait until Friday at 6:00 to do it. There's no social media post as opposed to every other post they put on that website. The latest articles have had social media posts. They wanted to hide that response as much as possible while actually ticking the box of saying, no, look, we did actually respond to your letter. That was bad enough for them to do that. But the tone and the apathy and just the general disrespect shown by the board by putting this out is frankly staggering. I think just the fact that they've not really addressed any of the concerns. They've got, we have done this. You haven't done it the right way, so we're not going to dignify you. The response is fucking shameful. And I think all three people involved in that, and it is three people involved in this. I've seen some people give Steve Borley a bit of grief on this. This isn't anything to do with him. He's a non-exec director. He's got no power there. His is sort of just their sort of advisory sort of role. And they clearly don't listen to him. I think Mehmet Dalman and Kenchu and Vincent Tan should be fucking ashamed of what they've done this. It's embarrassing.
Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, they're cowards. They've gone, we've got you on a technicality. We don't have to respond, is effectively what they've said.
Yeah.
They said, we've got these fan advisory boards and stuff now. We've got this. we've got these set things in the calendar where you can come to us, but outside of that, you can't say anything. We're not speaking to you. And it's a long page of saying absolutely fuck all. And like, I don't normally get too wound up about stuff like this, but I think one of the questions saying, is this a new low? And I think it is. Like, I think this is one of the most disappointed I've been with. There's an opportunity here to even say, look, we've appointed a full-time manager now. We've got a plan going forward. Just open up a little bit, just be a little bit transparent. But they've said absolutely nothing in that statement. And they've just treated us with absolute disregard. And it really did wind me up when I saw it. And like I said, I don't get wound up about things like this that easily. And I'm just absolutely fed up with stuff like this. And we're just being taken for mugs permanently. And, I feel sorry for the people who are working within the club who have to be the ones who have to publish this, because their hands will be tied. It's nothing to do with them. But like you've already touched on, like the fact it didn't get the timing of it, the fact it didn't get put on social media, Darman's the first one to do his 10 minutes on TalkSport, and then something like this, and they've just buried it. That's all they've done. Yeah. They've absolutely buried it, and hope that people wouldn't see it, and people wouldn't, like journalists, it would take time for them to do it and stuff like that. And it's just, it's pathetic, really. Like there's so much attention they don't pay to this club, but this was calculated. Like there's been conversations about this. This isn't half-assed. This is completely intentional.
Yes.
And
every word in there is deliberate.
Yeah, it's absolutely deliberate. And it's just, it's calculated, it's deliberate. And the way they've treated us as a fan base and the way they've treated the fan advisory board and everything is an absolute disgrace. I'm
looking at the statement now, I got it open, and obviously the first line is frustrations with early season performances. There's a preamble, and then it says frustrations with early season performances and our league position at this stage of the season are acknowledged and empathised with, and that's only reference to any substance within that letter. Then the next bit, which is longer, talks about how they're disappointed that the letter was released suddenly and outside of the frame of references of the FAB. So basically saying you've broken due process to release this letter.
Yeah, how dare us as fans do that?
How dare you as fans basically speak out of line? How dare you be annoyed at us? And we set this up for you, and you've spoken out of line, and we're slapping you on the head and saying no, you can't do that. And I was playing football on Friday night, and when this statement, I think Ben, you sent it in the group chat, and I read it once when I finished football, and I went, I think I'm missing something here. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna give myself 10 minutes and read it again. I read it again. I went, no, I'm not missing anything with this. This is a statement. I work in PR and comms. I write these statements for a living, and I was thinking, like, what are the options here for the club to respond with? They can either not respond, which would probably be better than writing this. They can just go, we'll leave that until the next meeting, which they say in the letter is Monday. So there must be a meeting tomorrow. Or either the Monday after. There'll be a meeting coming up between the fan advisory board. They could have waited to respond there. They could have responded with a one-liner that basically said, we acknowledge their letter and we will discuss it with them at the next fan advisory meeting, which is taking place Monday. A full report about this will be available afterwards. Very down the line, straightforward. Or they could have done a full response, which would have been address everything in the letter and say, we understand the frustration with this, and this. A plan is coming, whatever else, and kind of tried to address the substance of the letter. Or they went for the secret fourth option, which was this. And in my opinion, as someone who works in PR, the best option to be would have been option 2, which would have been acknowledge it, but then take it through the official channels where you can discuss it with them as a fan advisory board and then release the substance of the report afterwards. Instead, they went for the most explosive option. And I don't understand. I understand they want to defend themselves, and I understand they want to point to, like, the fan advisory board being a specific thing that operates in a certain way. But this isn't the time or the place to do that when the fans are already wound up. This is just like lighting a torch paper and handing it back to the fans and go and deal with this now. And it's just a disgrace.
But the worst thing is, it's not just the fact that they're defending themselves. They're tapping themselves on the back and saying, good job.
Well, yeah, exactly.
There's a bit at the bottom that says, ahead of several other clubs and without current obligation, Cardiff City Football Club took the decision to form its own independent fan advisory board. As if, like, oh, look at us, look how progressive we are. And that's the bit that winds me up. They're so out of touch there that they think, oh, yeah, we're actually doing good things. And it's just ridiculous. Like, I don't like being negative on you. I really don't like being negative, but this is a shambles.
Let's address the fan advisory board stuff then, right? And they set it up, and I think that's a really good thing, and clubs doing it. I think it's going to be legal requirement soon. I've just looked on the Fan Advisory Board website. The last meeting minutes were posted Wednesday, the 21st of August, 2024 at Cardiff City Stadium at 6 p.m. Present, Steve Borley, nominated board level representative. Philip Jenkins, Gavin Hawkey, Wayne Nash, Amy James, and sort of people within the club, and then obviously the Fan Advisory Board. Apologies were Corky, who couldn't make it, Mark Denham, and Alison Rees. There's three names missing from that stand out from a mile away. No Mehmet Dalman, no Ken Chu, no Vincent Tan. This letter's come from them, and it was directed at those three. So this response has come from them, of them saying, but we do the Fan Advisory Board. They don't do it. Mm-hmm. They're not attending these meetings. They attended a fans parliament on the 1st of November. We're looking at the minutes posted by the trust, and thanks to them again for their hard work. We're posting these minutes and keeping us informed because the club sure as shit aren't doing it. They talk about how much money Vincent Tan's putting in, all of that. If we're going to talk about the lack of clear strategy, where is it? I had it a second ago about the current management position. When asked if there'd be a quick decision regarding the managerial position, Mehmet Dalman replied simply with a quick no. Is that your communication with the fans? Of you just saying, no, we're not going to appoint someone quickly? Again, it's just showing lack of just respect or understanding. They're just and this isn't the Fan Advisory Board's fault. They're doing their best. These fans are sort of and you look at what the questions are and sort of the minutes from that last meeting. There's no real sort of impetus for them to sort of go over what they want to in regards to sort of the position and challenging Dalman, Tan, and Chu. This is sort of talking about stadium updates, like the banners and stuff. And I think the stuff with that, the club's done really well with. I think the 125 stuff, the videos they're posting out are really good. Really enjoy those. That stuff is really good, but there's no real challenge of the ownership. And the second they've been properly challenged by the Fan Advisory Board, who's there to represent the fans, they've churned out this shite response.
Well, to Tom's point about the last line, and this feeds into your point, Ben, the last line of the statement, it's a double hand. It's like a backhanded comment, right? Because they're basically saying we've done this ahead of everybody else, but then the last line of the statement is it is therefore concerning that this incendiary open letter was published contrary to the procedures and processes that the FAB agreed upon. They're basically saying we set you up so you could talk to us, but you're doing it out of line at this stage, and you're doing it out of the agreed procedures. So it's basically them saying we're going to keep your arm's length now, and we want to keep your arm's length because that's the way it should be set up, right? That's the way the club wanted to set up. Yeah, it looks good that we've got a Fan Advisory Board, but they're going to have a fuck all say on things if that's the case.
Yeah.
How should we respond to this, Tom, as a fan base? Obviously, it feels like, we've had incendiary statements from the club previously. They kind of discredited the trust a little while ago. They've said other things to the fan base. There's talk of protest. There's talk of voting with our feet. But how should we respond as fans to this now on a practical level?
It's a really, really tough one, right? Because we're on the field, we're in a really tough spot where we're just floating above the relegation zone. So anything that happens could have a detrimental effect on what happens on the field. There's also we're in legal cases all over the shop. We don't know where our money's tied up and stuff like that. So we don't know what the effects would be if our ownership pulled the plug as well. So we're kind of really caught just in a really, really tough spot as a fan base where whatever we do, it could have a detrimental effect. The honest answer is I don't know, because the obvious thing would be to protest and stuff against it, but I don't know where that leaves us. Yeah. And about voting with our feet. If you look at our attendances, we've been doing that unintentionally for years. Our numbers are dwindling, the atmosphere is dwindling, the apathy is building. So we kind of been slowly protesting with our money and with our attendances for seasons. So, I'm not sure how much attention the ownership, the whole people in charge would I don't know if they pay any attention to it whatsoever. So, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything about it. And this is the problem. I go in circles and circles and circles with this because I genuinely don't know what the answer is.
On your point about attendances, I was just looking at the average attendance on transfer market. Something quite interesting I just found, which is a completely irrelevant point. In 2013-14, when we were in the Premier League in red, there were 19 games. We sold out 13 of them. In 2018-19, there were 19 games in the Premier League and we sold out none of them, which strikes me as quite odd. Ben, where do you think we should go? Obviously, talk of protest. To Tom's point, who are we protesting against if they're not at games?
Yeah, that is the problem, isn't it? I think Tom's absolutely nailed it. We're saying like not turning up, fans will be doing that anyway. Just because the official attendance for the season's been sort of 15, like it's been over 18,000. I was at the QPR game. There was more at the Wales women's playoff game than there was at that QPR game. They were just spread out differently. There was at most there was 300 people in that family stand. The Ninian was pretty full. Canton wasn't quite full, and then the grandstand was half empty. You've either got to sort of look at doing a full fan sabotage where no fans turn up or as few as possible turn up, and official fan groups sort of call for this. But I think it's got to be, these protests have to be done in a constructive way. There can be all this talk about getting tan out, but realistically, until this Salah stuff is sorted, we're tied to them. They're not going anywhere. So it is a case of opening. It's not a case of burning bridges. It has to be a two-way thing of this has to be a communication issue. This has to be resolved in an amicable way for both sides. And they have to be willing to come to the table and admit their faults, which is the one thing they're just not doing at the moment. And I think that's where the official fan channel, the official fan partnerships like the fan board and stuff like that have to lead this and do it in a constructive way. I think unofficial fan groups going out and doing protests with banners saying tan out and all that, it isn't going to work. It's not this kind of thing. I think it's deeper than that. It's a lot more substantial than that. And I think it has to be done in an organised, smart way, which is well above my pay grade because I'm too reactionary to handle that stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing I always go back and forth with. And I'm not averse to protests. I've been on protests before about this football club. Obviously, Back to Blue during the Premier League season, there was that big march. I think it was the whole game and all this kind of stuff. I've been on protests, and I think they can have an impact. But I think it's the apathy at the moment for me that's kind of like kicking in because one, Dalman, Chew, Tan don't go to games, so you're protesting against people who aren't going to see the protests. They don't engage with the media in the same way. So if you do protest, who actually sees it? I'm not sure on that. But also, I agree to that point. It needs to be coordinated in the right way because if you have these splinter groups going off, then they'll just go, as we've seen with the fan advisory board, who is an official channel. The club will just go, "Oh, it was only a few hundred people. They don't represent the rest of the fan base." So it needs to be organised in a coordinated fashion if a protest is going to take place. And I that's what I go back and forth with, right? I don't want people listening to this podcast going, "Oh, they don't want to see action. They don't want to see change." I think everybody wants to see action and change. Yeah. It's just we're skeptical about how it can be organised and how it can be effective against people who aren't at the club, who don't come to the club, and how organised and effective it can be when splinter groups will splinter off and do their own thing. So, I know the fan advisory board has been set up in an official channel and all this kind of stuff. But I'd be interested to see if there's onus on them to kind of pick something up, or if there's onus on the trust to do a little bit more. I don't know. We're not an official channel. We're a podcast of three idiots who talk about Cardiff City, and we seem to have a big crowd. So, if I understand. I think we were tagged in some tweets about amplifying messages. We'll be happy to work with people. We'll be happy to do something, but I'm just skeptical as to what that is at the moment.
Well, look, I think as well, someone from the fan advisory board or the trust someone wants to come on, have a little chat about what their next steps are, how they feel, and go 100% open invitation for that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
And same for the club. If the club want to come on and defend it on here, they're not going to. But open invitation that way as well. I think it's got to be a balanced, fair response on it.
The one thing I want to make sure doesn't happen, I really hope doesn't happen, is that we turn on each other. Not the three of us, but you know what I mean. I think
anyway,
people are going to protest, people aren't. But let's not have a go the ones that are, and let's not have a go the ones that aren't.
Yeah,
because we all want the best for the club. We just got different thoughts on how it can be done. My thoughts are, I don't know what my thoughts are. And there'll be people who are very staunchly in the other camps. But we've got to make sure that we're united as a fan base in terms of still supporting this club. And our common enemy isn't the people who sit next to us, it's the people who haven't bothered to come and sit in the same stadium as us. So I really hope that we don't turn on each other. I think that's the only thing that I just really hope comes out of this.
Hear, hear. Right. I mean, a couple of things to talk about. Actual football. FA Cup draw was done last week. As usual, Cardiff City got a really, really boring draw. Sheffield United away. And it's been made worse, Tom, by BBC Wales putting it on a Thursday night. Is this the most underwhelming FA Cup draw we've had in years? They've always been underwhelming, but it moving to a Thursday makes it more underwhelming for me.
Yeah, Thursday night games are not the one, are they? It's just again
in the Europa League.
It's just it just again, just treats the fans with just contempt, doesn't it? Like, we wouldn't have travelled in big numbers up there anyway, because we play them on a regular basis. But like a Thursday night there, it's an awful, awful scheduling for our fans. Selfishly, I can watch it on a Friday morning, and I work from home on a Friday, so it's all right. But like, it is a boring draw. You look, and it's an FA Cup third round draw that is great. You've got like narrative after narrative. You've got like
Accrington versus Liverpool.
You've got like Ashley Young to play
Young.
against his son. You've got like they touched on this in the Guardian Football Weekly, like with all these fixtures, but like you've got the class of '92 with Salford going to Man City, and it's just there's loads of things. And then when we were left in the draw, there was some really interesting ones.
There were 3 Championship teams out of 8 left, and there was still Ipswich, Fulham, and I think someone like Palace as well, yeah. And there was only 3 Championship teams left.
And like even those are like fairly interesting, but it's fine. Well, like as soon as you're in the third round and the draw's been made, you're hoping for a good draw in the fourth round. It's a winnable tie. You don't know what team Sheffield United are going to put out. You don't know what we're going to put out because we're both fighting for different things this season. But like, you know, it's winnable. So if we get through it, then we cross our fingers for a better tie in the next round.
Ben, do you like Sheffield United?
I don't mind them. It's a game like I saw we got Sheffield United. I was like, like if it's a decent kickoff, as long as it's not moved for stupid time for telly, I'd probably go to it. Cause it's a ground I've wanted to kick off this season. I was like, it's not a bad shout that.
That was my thoughts as well.
And then they moved it to a Thursday with a 7 p.m. kickoff.
Yeah, it's a stinker. Absolute stinker.
It's just like, it wasn't the most interesting anyway, but we're really going to cut the feet out from it and make it just really as uninteresting as possible. And
let's look ahead to the games this week. Obviously, 2 games in the coming week. We've got Preston on Wednesday night, sure to be a thriller. Stoke next Saturday on a cold Saturday in December. Looking at the form table, Stoke sitting 15th. 3 draws, 2 losses out of the last 5 games. Preston in 17th. 1 loss, 4 draws in a row. We're in 21st. 2 losses, a draw, a loss and a draw. Tom, these 2 games are shaping up to be classics of this season, aren't they? 3 of the best teams in the division coming up against each other in December. 7-goal thrillers written all over both of them, isn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised if something like that does happen because the league is a bit mad. But they're 2 quite important games because it is remarkably close at the moment from like around the outside of the playoff picture down to the relegation zone. And we are teetering at the moment as well. And a couple of wins, a couple of decent results, which I think we're capable of. And we start to move ourselves away from the danger zone. So as much as they don't sound great on paper, they're really interesting ties, and it'd be a really interesting gauge to see where we are against clubs who are in fairly similar situations to us. So it's an important couple of fixtures, that's for sure.
Well, Stoke are in 15th and they're only 4 points ahead of us. Preston in 17th, they're only 2 points ahead of us. Even if you look beyond Stoke in 15th, Swansea are picking up a bit of form. They're only 7 points ahead of us. So 2 wins, and all of a sudden we're, other results go our way midweek and on Saturday. If we get 2 wins here, we're all of a sudden on 23 points, which at this current juncture would put us 14th, which shows how tight the bottom is, considering we're in 21st at the moment. Ben, does Omer Riza being permanent manager give us a bit of a boost going into these games?
Yeah, go on. Let's get some positivity in here. It's been like
go on.
People thought the last few weeks were negative. Fucking hell, this week has been bad. So yeah, go on. I'll go with some positivity. Yeah, I think there'll be some sort of reaction to that this week or Saturday, Tuesday.
We've gone on for an hour and 15 minutes at this stage, so we've got to cut it short. But Tom, predictions for these 2 games?
I think we'll win both. I think they'll be tight games, but I think it'd be a combination of like a 1-0 and a 2-1 in there. I don't think we're going to hammer a team, but I think we're good enough to grind out a couple of results at the right time here.
Ben?
4 points from 2 games.
Yeah, I was going to go 4 points. I don't think we'll beat Stoke, but I think it's going to be a boring draw. But I think we'll beat Preston. I think we went to Stoke last year, and it was 0-0, wasn't it, Tom? It was one of the most boring games of the season. So I can just see that happening again. But I think we'll get 4 points, which would be a real boost going into the Christmas period. That's it. Amazing, really, that we made it last an hour and 15 minutes, considering there was absolutely no football to talk about. Which goes to show really what these podcasts are about, isn't it? It's not about the football. It's about the community and about everything that sits around Cardiff City. Ben, Sunday morning, it's like we time traveled. What are you going to do for the rest of the day?
I'm going to brack and tweet a Christmas dinner.
On December the 8th.
Yeah, jumping into the car now and going. So,
all right, Tom, it's nighttime for you. Are you going to go and put some after sun on your face?
I was about to say I'm going to fill a bath with aloe vera and just stay in there for a few hours, I think, because I look absolutely ridiculous.
Honestly, the white mark across your forehead has gotten more and more pronounced as this podcast has gone on.
It's probably developed.
Yeah, the worst thing is because I've got angry about the fucking statement and it's made my face even more red. Yeah, there we go. Well, I'm blaming the board for this as well.
All right, yeah. That's the fan advisory board to bring it up tomorrow in their meeting. Tom's red face. I'm just going to go and make some food and tidy my bedroom because, as you can see, there's a pile of shit behind me that I've hidden by a blurred video. Thanks for joining us again. Ben, do you want to do something on Wednesday night after the Preston game?
Yeah, can do. I'm not going to football training, so yeah, let's do it.
All right, lovely stuff. We'll do something after the Preston game on Wednesday. We'll be back with a full podcast next Sunday after the next two games. We'll see you then. Ta-da!